Hi guys, Bran here, and welcome to another commentary video. Today, my commentary video is going to be kind of a longer one. I think it's going to be longer than the other ones because I have a lot of thoughts about this. Because recently, there's been a kind of a horror ASYM craze that's starting to happen, huh? Kind of reminds you of the good old days of like when there was like MMOs, like the MMO craze was coming out. You know, in like the mid 2000s, there was like RuneScape, obviously WoW, and then everybody wanted to have one. We even had like Toontown and stuff. Like it feels like we're at like the precipice of like, hey, horror ASYMs are popular and we're about to get like a ton of them. We have VHS that's already been a thing. We had Home Sweet Home Survive, which unfortunately did not work out. And then we have the Texas Chainsaw game coming out. And then we have the Killer Clowns from Space game, which I never thought that IP would ever create a horror ASYM, but you know, here we are. So it seems like, just like, you know, like I mentioned, just like the MMO days, it seems like everybody wants a piece of the horror ASYM pie now. The success that DBD has by consistently staying, at least by order of the Steam charts, in the top 20 most played games on Steam pretty consistently, and having 6-digit number players worldwide. People want a piece of that pie now. But like I mentioned, we've already had plenty of horror ASYMs go the way of the dodo, and apparently that's not a common phrase. So I had to explain this to a friend the other day. That means the dodo is extinct. That's the joke. Like, it goes the way of the dodo, it's gone. So yeah, I didn't know that wasn't a common saying until the other day, but there we go. And I wanted to break down why I think a lot of current ASYM competition kind of falls short, and why the ones in the past have kind of gone incredibly wrong. And I think it comes down to one basic thing that DBD does do right that's kind of like very vastly overlooked, and kind of seeing how other games don't really do that and how that would contribute to their better success. So let's go ahead and get started. So I think the main flaw of most horror ASYMs and where they go wrong is that they're often way too transformative from the base model. Of course, if you're making a completely different game, you really shouldn't be making it beat for beat the same game as the most popular game in the genre. You've seen a lot of games that try to copy a more popular game almost to a T and fail time and time again. So you don't want to do that. You want to add on to the formula. You want to do something different. You want to transform it into something that is its own thing, that is just vaguely similar to the thing that came before it, the model of success. However, if you become too transformative with this thing, you're going to turn it into something else entirely, and that something else may not be what people want to play. I think what I see often in horror ASYMs is giving one side way too much attention. That could be in the form of strength, throwing one balance to one side or the other, or either side is either uninteresting or unfun to play as. However, whether you love or hate Dead by Daylight, despite some missteps, it really has nearly perfected the formula of how a horror ASYM should work. However, many other games that are in that same genre, you can't say the same. They definitely deviate pretty far from the said formula and usually try to satisfy some sort of aspect that DB doesn't have going on, and kind of indulge in something that frustrated them about the main game that they're copying. But, like Squidward says at the end of the SpongeBob movie, maybe you didn't want what you thought you wanted. Often, the back and forth tug of war between Cyber and Killer is on purpose. For the most part, the game remains at like 60-40 between one side and the other in terms of who holds the most strength. Many people disagree on which side that is. Some people say the game is Killer side, and some people say the game is Survivor side. But the truth is, besides the occasional like broken perk combo or exploit, the power disparity between sides isn't really as vast as people actually make it out to be. And I think that's what I see going wrong in a lot of horror ASYMs. The ASYMs try to push a specific side as their more favored side. This doesn't even have to be like a power thing. It could be just like the company clearly puts more effort into this one side instead of the other. For me, I think VHS is a perfect example for this. The teen role is very well-rounded, very super cool, very, very fulfilling. Out of the 4 stigmas, there's a whole slew of cool and well-designed weapons that you can use to play the game differently while achieving the same goal. Even in one stigma alone, you can play vastly different playstyles that are appropriate against different players, different playstyles, different monsters, etc. For example, a lot of people like to play like safe and consistent with the cross, but if you want that hype shot, you want something that actually feels cool as hell to pull off, go for the slingshot. The risk is higher, but like, man, I've watched people get those cross map shots. Whew. There's nothing more euphoric, I promise, to watch somebody pop off because they get a cross-map slingshot. And this level of depth to T is what makes the game so fun and so intriguing, and puts it like away, like head above the DBD survivor role. However, as you've probably seen, there is a VHS problem when it comes to queue times and a low amount of monster players. I have a whole summary of why I ended up liking VHS, and that's up here, and you can watch that if you really want to. But I just wanted to comment on this briefly because I wanted to be a monster main when this game first came out, and I found it ultimately unfulfilling, and I think it ties into this conversation of why a lot of the horror ASYMS kind of go off the rails a little bit. I tried all 3 monsters and played them, and they felt pretty samey. Dollmaster had a lot of depth and strategy, but I feel like Werewolf and Wart kind of largely played the same, but there's even like overlap even between these 3 characters, even though Dollmaster is pretty different. Now, I haven't played Eviscerator that just came out, so I'm not going to be commenting on them in this little section here, because I'm not going to comment on something that I have not physically touched or played or watched a lot of. Basically, the monster formula boils down to this, no matter who you're playing. Use your info ability. Approach, use your anti-teen weapon ability, that being like the Werewolf Scream or the armor for Wart. Use your movement ability to gain distance on the teen, so that would be like Wart's Pounce. Hit the teen, wash, rinse, repeat. There's not really a way to make like a whole lot of like thrilling plays as monster, really. The closest you get is like when you're under the effect of like a weapon and it's like blasting in your face, and you wait it out. You're really patient, and if you're really patient, you can hit them at the last second, cancel the whole attack, and now you're in the clear, and that does feel good. But that's just kind of it. There's not really anything crazy like the slingshot that you can do on the monster side. This isn't even to say that the monster roll is weak at all. Matter of fact, monsters actually roll teams all the time. I see it happen all the time on streams. However, the thing you actually spend your time doing is like very procedural. I think that's the word I want to say with that, procedural. There's no switching weapons, there's no getting wild skill shots, there's no stealthing around. There's kind of like very little variety in the gameplay that you perform between the monsters. And the monster gameplay largely plays out the same, game to game to game. And once again, allow me to be clear, I do love how in-depth Teen is. I vastly prefer Teen to Survivor and Dead by Daylight. I think it's a much more filled out role. I think there's a lot more to do. There's a lot more variety. There's a lot more personalization. It is way more fun. But Monster didn't have that same level of depth for me, and that's the role I wanted to play. So to bring this full circle, that's why I feel like so many horror ASYMS go wrong, because that close balancing, not just from like a power role like perspective of like which side is the power role, but like from an attention perspective, like who is getting the more attention, who's getting the more fleshed out gameplay. This is why DVD continues to thrive. It's why people can't even seem to agree on which side has the most power, because they are so close. They are so close in terms of who has the upper hand. So the community can't agree on who has the power because they keep that balancing really close. When it becomes clear that devs kind of favor one side, whether that comes from the power, the intention, etc., it's hard for players to invest in the side that it at least appears that devs care less about, even if it's not on purpose. And when players feel like their side isn't being invested to, they often just stop playing. they just quit, which drives down player count and raises queue times through the roof. And that's kind of like the blessing and the curse of ASYM games, is that everything is based on the player base, because you're facing real players, and each match, ergo feels more dynamic because people play characters differently, even if there's not a whole lot of wiggle room to do so. So that makes the ASYM feel more asymmetrical. However, as these games live by the good things about, being a player v player situation, they also die by being a player v player situation. And keeping that player count high, that is the ultimate challenge. It's one where I see most games fail. So yeah, what do you think is the reason that most horror ASYMs outside of Dead by Daylight fail? Do you agree with my reasoning, or do you have another theory that I would like to hear? Because I would like to hear it, so put it down in the comments down below. But other than that, thank you so much for watching, guys. I appreciate you so much, and I will see you in tomorrow's video. But if I do not, I will see you when I see you. Goodbye.